Now we're going to look at two things. First thing that I'm going to look at is basically what we call liquidity trap. Okay, this is an important concept because it stems from our discussion we just had. So this is Keynesian's view. Keynesians believe that when you look at demand for money, the demand for money actually is a curve that looks like this. Liquidity preference is also their theory, but they say this, the curve actually looks like this. It's very like inelastic in the upper half, and then later on it becomes flat. In fact, even if the demand goes up like this. So this is LP naught versus LP1, which means that there is some interest rates below which your interest rate doesn't fall any further. And the reason why they say this is because of the concept of liquidity trap. I'm going to talk about this in 1 minute, but first I wanted to talk about the shape of the liquidity demand for money, which is basically something like this. Now, why does this liquidity trap happens? So let's see this. Let's make one curve only and see money supply going up. Okay, so this is, let's say, your liquidity preference LP naught, and let's say money supply goes up. Initially, when the money supply goes up, you may see interest rates to fall. But then when the money supply goes up further, you might see that the interest rates are not changing anymore. The interest rates are not changing because of something called expectations of the economy is different when the interest rates are really low. Why? When the interest rates are really low, then the price of bonds are really high. In fact, when the interest rates are really low, people are not putting the money in the banks. People are buying properties, people are buying assets, people are buying bonds, securities, and all that. But they're not putting the money in the banks, which means the demand for all these assets will be really high. So when the price of bonds is low, we know this. When the interest rates are low, the price of bonds and other securities will be high. When they're really low, then the price of bonds will be really high. And if you are at R1, then your expectations is this, that interest rate can't fall any further. इससे नीचे interest rate नहीं जाएगा. Interest rate can't fall any further. If interest rates can't fall any further, which means price of bonds is so high that it can't go up any further. If price of bonds is so high that it can't go up any further, nobody would want to buy a bond. Nobody would want to buy any asset because they'd be like, this price is so high, the property is so expensive, the bonds are so expensive, the shares are so expensive that they will only go down in price. And if they only go down in price, suddenly we'll realize this, that the goal of interest rate is no longer there. Because जब आप interest rate गिराते हो, when you make the interest rate go down, we know that the people will be basically be buying more and consumption may go up and investment may go up. But this time around, when the interest rates are really low, people start to expect that the prices will fall, which means that they will not spend. And if they don't spend, this extra money is the liquidity that they do not spend. They just save this money. They save this because they know that tomorrow when the price will go down, we will buy more, but not today. So this extra money supply, when money supply goes up and interest rates do not change, basically people are saving and not spending. Why? Because they believe that the price will fall soon. So they delay their spending, which in other words, there is something called a deflationary effect in an economy. A recession is happening, a deflationary effect is happening in an economy. People are not buying. And as a result of this, we are in what we call a liquidity trap. We are in a liquidity trap because people are not spending this money. So according to the Keynesians, and this actually is an important result, according to the Keynesians, interest rates are effective only when the interest rates are very high. When the interest rates are really low, the monetary policy of changing interest rates and therefore changing AD would not work. But at high interest rate, you may see them to be powerful because when the interest rates are high, then small change in money supply can change interest rates a lot more. So you can make the AD to change a lot more. But if interest rates are really low, then there is monetary policy sort of does not work well. Okay, so that's your liquidity trap. One last thought before we end our class is basically what we call downward sloping AD. So one of the reasons why AD curve is downward sloping is because of what we call interest rate effect. The interest rate effect says this, that if this is my demand for money, and let's say this is my money supply, and let's say currently my interest rate is R0. Okay, let's say this is my AD curve. So I have price level here, and I have my real GDP here. Okay, and currently let's also assume that our price level is P0 and GDP is Y0. Now what if price level goes up? So let's call this number 1. When the price level goes up, basically what happens is this, that remember we said this, that nominal GDP may when nominal GDP goes up, demand for money goes up. When the price level goes up, basically suddenly people will find things expensive. Inflation की वजह से the demand for money would rise. So this would be number 2. Okay, because the demand for money goes up, interest rate would go up. Number 3. And when the interest rates go up, we know that cost of borrowing is going up. Incentive to save is also going up, which means that your consumption would fall. So consumption goes up, consumption goes down, investment goes down, and therefore because of this your GDP goes down. So number 4 would be this. Okay, so repeating this process, so when the price level goes up, it results in people to demand more money to buy the same amount of goods and services, which in turn would mean the interest rate would go up from R0 to, I should have said R1. And as a result of this was number 3 basically. R0 to R1, which in turn results in consumption to fall and investment to fall, and that explains why GDP falls. So we go from Y0 to Y1. Okay, so that's the downward sloping demand for AD.